Hello and welcome to another Clay Creator build. Today's model is the Key Stage 2 aeroplane and control tower, which I'm hoping will look a little like this at the end. To build these, we are going to need our scales, creator cards, tools, and obviously our pots of clay. We're also asking if at all possible to get hold of an airtight container, maybe a lunchbox, Tupperware, something like that to keep the clay nice and fresh during the build itself. Okay. Before we get started on the model though, I'm going to go over the key facts of the airplane. Hopefully there's something new for you to take on board, some more information, and you can maybe use that alongside our activity sheets, word searches and crosswords later on. Okay. Fact number one then. Airplanes are used for transportation, they're used for recreation, research, and also for military purposes. Fact number two, engines are what provide the thrust and what that's needed for the plane to move forward. This is overcoming the drag and allowing the wings to actually create the lift for the plane to get up off the ground. Fact number three, a lot of people may know this already, it was the Wright brothers who were believed to have created the first successful aeroplane, and their first names were Wilbur and Orville. Okay. Fact number four, something I wasn't aware of, that all air traffic control tower staff and the pilots must be able to speak English. Okay, so even if you work in a foreign country a long way away, you still have to be able to speak English when needed. Okay. Fact number five, a Boeing 747, big aeroplane, is made up of 6 million parts, okay? And these parts are obviously what make the plane fly and can all be controlled by the pilots sat in their cockpit, okay? Fact number six, final fact, not sure if you know this, but all planes have something on board called the black box. These black boxes aren't actually black, they are painted bright orange, and these boxes are what's used to record important information on the flight. Okay, one of these black boxes basically controls and records all flight data, anything that may go wrong with any of parts of the plane. So those 6 million parts, something goes wrong, the one black box will control that. The other one will record all radio conversation from the pilots and the ground, and any background noise from within the plane. Okay, so that's our facts finished, and we'll move on to build itself. Scales need to be turned on as always, again double checking they're at 0 and with the grams. First measurement then with our white clay will be 8 grams, so ideally this is pretty much dead on, slightly over would probably be better rather than under on this measurement. Just over. Smidge it off. Okay, so the next measurement is a tiny bit of black. Okay, so we're just going to change this from pure white into a very light grey, if that makes sense. And the measurement this time is 020, 020 of black clay. Okay, and again, if your clay is slightly above, slightly over, it's not a problem. You're just going to get a slightly different shade of grey. If you want yours to be a little bit darker, then obviously just go over 020, 021, 22. So then mix them together and we should get a nice grey. Now once we've mixed this, we are going to measure and take parts. This is generally used for most of the airplane. Okay, I'm actually just going to take this off so we've got a little bit more room on here. So most of the airplane will be made out of grey. We're going to obviously shape some to start off with, and we're going to need to save some again for later on as well. So once we're all mixed, our first measurement is going to be 5 grams of grey clay. So I'm happy with that, I think. Yep. So again, scales on at 0. I'm going to measure 5 grams. Okay, 5 grams, which I'm happy with. And the rest of the clay. So the 5 grams is what we're going to use. We're going to save the rest of this. So again, I'm going to pop this now into my airtight container, put the lid on. Now 5 grams is what we're going to start working with. Again, if possible, get rid of all the lines, lumps, bumps, and start off with a nice, oops, nice ball. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to roll this one out. You may want to use your creator card's ruler slightly if you want to. The measurements we're trying to look for now, again, it doesn't have to be exact, it's just kind of a little guideline. Okay, so I'm going to roll this into a sausage. Again, pressure evenly if you can. I'm going to roll this out to around about 7 centimeters. Okay, trying to get nice and even. We're looking for roughly 7 centimeters. Okay, so nice and even, 7 centimeters. Okay, now this is the fuselage of the plane. Okay, the main body of the plane. Okay, so we're going to start here and we're going to build around that. So ideally, we can try and put a little bit of shape in it now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of gently push down at one end, just give it a little indent, because this is going to be the nose or the front of the plane. Okay, so the little shape I'm trying to make is kind of like that. Okay, we'll put a windshield on there, or a window, put a little nose cone on there later on. So the wings are going to go on here, and then the tail will go on at the back. Okay, what I'd like to do now, before we move on to the next step, is keep that fresh. Okay, so if I can keep that fresh, I'm going to pop that back into my airtight container. Pop that lid back on. We are very quickly going to do some engines. Okay, now the engines are a little bit fiddly, not too fiddly. Okay, there are a few builds. We're going to start with our red clay, and our engines are all going to be red. Okay, so on this plane we're going to do 4 engines. Okay, they aren't too tricky, but there are a couple of builds. So we are going to measure out 4 0.4s. Okay, so 0.4 4 times. Again, with this bit, it is better if you do get pretty much 0.4. Again, the odd bit here there is not a problem. So I am 0.42. 0.42, fine. So I've got 1, 0.41, 0.41, freaky, 3.9. Ooh, I had to touch. Okay. So I have my 4 engines. Okay. So give them all a little roll. Try and get rid of any lines again as usual. Roll them out. Now all we're going to do with these, we're going to turn them into small sausages. So I'm going to give them just a very slight press and a slight roll on them all. Now, your engines might not be exactly the same as my engines. The important thing is that all 4 of yours are pretty much the same sort of shape. Okay, so I'm looking for stuff like this. Okay, same again. Now, what I've done in the past, I thought it worked out pretty well, is now that I've done that, I'm going to turn them on to one end and just stand them all up. Just whilst I do the next fact. So whilst they're, sorry, not the next fact, the next step. Whilst they're stood up on their end, I can then do the next bit of the model. Okay. Now all we're going to do is we're going to put a smidge of black clay on the front of these engines, if that makes sense. So all we're going to do is take our creator card, use the smallest measurement, which is the 0.5, and we're going to do 4, again, 0.5 measurements. Now, in this aspect, when I'm talking about sizes, if 0.5, if it's a bit smaller than 0.5, it's not a problem. And again, remember, you kind of need to see the outline of that measurement, as in the 0.5 measurement circle. You still need to see the outside, if possible. Like I say, measurement slightly off, it's not a problem, as long as all 4 of your little black dots or balls are about the same size. Okay, so got my 4. now what we're going to do, we're going to put these black dots on the front of the engines, if that makes sense. So the bit that is flat against the work surface now will have given you a flatter part. So that is the part where we're going to put these engines. So all we're going to do, press down on the black dot slightly, give it a nice flat circle now, make a little disc. I'm going to take that off, pop it onto the front, right in the middle. So we should have that. Okay. Now if you want to put a little detail onto that, maybe a little cross, you're more than welcome to. You can add details on later on. You probably can't tell, but I've just done a couple of little lines in there. Again, then I'm going to stand it on that end. Repeat that process with the other ones. These, like I say, will be our engines. What we will do is get these onto the wings. Oops. Try not to throw them around too much. There we go. Okay. Now that we've got them on, if you could then turn them back onto their side and give them a flatter bottom. I'll retrieve that one that I've thrown in there. And so now I've got my 4 identical engines. Okay, so once we've got that, we're going to move on to the wings. Okay, so what you're going to collect is the spare clay, which was the grey that we measured off. Didn't use at the beginning. Okay, go onto the scales again. Now we are going to be doing 2 wings, and our wings are going to measure at 0.8. Okay, so we're going to need 2 0.8s. Should I say, sorry, 0.80. Okay. This will leave you with some spare clay, as we will still need to make the tail. Okay, so again, spare clay, let's pop it away for later on. Yes, we'll be using it shortly, but if you guys are pausing, if you guys are stopping, it's always best to keep that fresh, okay? So, as always, give it a little stretch out, give it a roll, get a nice smooth ball, shape, okay? So, these wings are going to be rolled out. We don't want them too flat, but we do need them flat-ish, okay, if that makes sense. So again, using our creator card, we're going to you can use the ruler. Again, this is just kind of close kind of measurement, okay. So we're going to roll out to around about 3 centimeters, and then when we press down and squash it, it will obviously stretch it out a little bit, and it will end up around about 4 centimeters, okay. And again, give or take. Okay, 3 centimeters. I'm happy with that. Another 3, perfect. So I should now have 2 wings, sausage shapes, ready to be flattened out, okay? Curve them a little bit now by picking them up. Okay, so gently pressing down, not too much pressure, try and make it even all the way along, so you end up with an even wing. The surface of your work surface should give you a nice flat surface, so you can flip them over to get both sides really flat and really smooth if possible. Okay, so I have squished them down. We are now looking at that sort of shape. Okay, now if you are a little bit more advanced and you want to make a little bit more detail on your wing, now is the time to kind of do that while the clay is fresh. Okay, so if you want to put those flaps on the wings, like we discussed at the beginning, about reducing drag and things like that, the wings will have some flaps on. Maybe your parents can help you draw them on if need be. I generally would just take my tool and do a few lines down the back of my wings. Okay, and again, your wings can be shaped if you wish. Our simple version would be to just put the wings on here. Me personally, I'd like to curve my wings a little bit towards the tip to give them a little bit more of a wing shape, if that makes sense. Same on this one. Okay, so what we will do now, we're going to take our engines, I'm going to put 2 on each wing, or should I say under each wing. The wings will go on top. So if you can see, I'm placing them evenly apart, little gap in between each engine. Take my wing and pop it on the top with a little gap on the end of both sides. That makes sense. Okay, you don't want too much of a gap at this end. You don't want them to, because we don't want the clay as it's drying to kind of droop over the edge, if that makes sense. So my engines are on. It should hold up like so. Again, don't press down too hard, just give it a little bit of a sit on. So it should have 2 wings that look roughly like this. Okay, pull it down. Now this is where we need to get that onto the fuselage that we built originally. So again, take out of the airtight container and we are going to pop these on now. So if I turn the fuselage towards you, we are obviously going to be putting a window in at the front here. I'm going to put my 2 wings, not halfway, a little bit further towards the back of the plane, but the wings should line up and it should sit nicely. Give it a little press. If you have to readjust the wings slightly, that's fine. And again, remember the engines are basically the little stanchions hold the wings up. If you can see, I can then pick up, give it a little bit press against, and we should have an airplane that looks like this. So whilst it's drying, it will obviously sit with the wings flat on the work surface there. Okay, so whilst that dries a little bit, I'm going to pop this. Actually, we're not going to put it away. I'm going to leave it out just to let the wings dry a little. So I'm going to just move that to the side here. I'm not going to put that away. We are going to move straight onto my wings. My engines are just caught. Okay, I'm going to move on to the tail part that we discussed originally. So going on to, my plane's been very naughty today. If you do have little issues and you want your plane to dry in a different way, there are lots of different, again, just for a little bit while the clay kind of sets a little bit. So if you've got a droopy wing, you've got something like that, a little trick while it's sat there drying, take a pen or a felt tip or something, you can just rest it underneath the wing to stop it drooping, if that makes sense. So it will just hold up the wing until it dries a little, and then it will set and it'll be absolutely fine. Take the pens away and you're all good to go. Okay, so tail, we're going to take the rest of that grey clay that we made earlier on, and the measurements for the tail is we're going to do 3 triangles basically. Okay, we're going to do 2 smaller ones and then 1 bigger one. So I'm going to pop the scale on quickly. Okay, so the 2 smaller ones that we're going to put on the outside of the tail, so we're going to be putting on the outside of the plane. The one on the top will be the bigger one, so we've got 2 smaller ones on the outside. They are going to be measured at 020 or 020, so just 2 small grey balls. And the bigger one on the top will be 0.5. Okay, 0.50. Okay, so I've got my 2 small ones and then my bigger one. And again, if this bigger one's slightly smaller, that's not a problem at all. The 0.20's probably pretty close to being on there. And the 0.5 could be a little smaller. Okay. So I've done 0.46 basically. Still got a touch of spare clay if we need to use that later on. Pop that away, pop that into the container. Okay, I'm starting with the bigger one. I'm going to roll out, and I'm just going to flatten it, and then try and turn it into a little bit of a triangle. Now, there are different ways of doing this. You can just do it with your fingers like I am doing. You can use the work surface to give you the flat surfaces. And you can also use your tools to give you a really flat. And we're going to just turn that into a triangle like so. Again, don't make it too flat. It's still similar to like how the wings were. Okay, and this is going to go on the airplane. The longest side at the bottom will sit on the top of the plane at the back. And we're going to do the same process with the little ones. Roll them, make them nice and smooth, and turn them into 2 little triangles. Again, flatten them out using whichever process you need. If you need to use the work surface or your tools, it's completely up to you. I will then pop onto my airplane and set with the other one. So it should look from the back, side, and then from the front if I don't drop him. Okay, pop that down again, readjust the wings because mine now are sticking to the engines. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so moving on to the next step, we are going to do our windows. Now, if you particularly want blue windows, you can use blue. We like to make it a little lighter blue. So we're going to take the white clay and add a touch of blue to kind of change it up a little bit. So the white measurement, back to the scales again, remember, back to 0, is going to be 1.20. Now, if it's slightly lower than 1.20, it's fine, it's not a problem. Generally have enough clay with that one once we've done a mix. So I am going to be at 119. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Again, play away, keep it nice and fresh. Touch of blue. The blue, all we're going to do with the blue, we're going to use a 0.5 centimeter circle measurement on here. So just a little tiny pinch. Fits in there, fantastic. And we're going to mix those two together to get our light blue mix. Okay, quite mix. Now this light blue is going to be for the main windshield, and then any of the little windows that we will dot down the side. Now, decoration with the windows is completely up to you whether you use as many windows as we do. Again, this is a little guide. You might want to do more, you might want to do less. It's completely up to you. Again, you're playing for your designs. Okay, so light blue mixed in, ready to go. This light blue will also be used on our control tower towards the end. Okay, so again, we'll be using a little bit later on. Also, we'll save some for in a bit. Okay, so from this from this blue, we need to measure out 1.00 of blue to start off with. Okay, and this is the bit that we will save for our control tower. Okay, so got that measurement. I will pop that into my airtight container and save that for later on. The windows itself, we are now going to do and pop onto the plane. Okay, so I'm going to just take a small pinch. Now, as I've said a lot of times in a lot of our videos, the decoration side, it's always better to do less clay. It works out better. So I'm going to be taking the tiniest pinches of blue clay to kind of do the decoration. Okay, you might need a little help from mum, dad, or whoever's helping guide you along here today. Just because it gets a little bit delicate, if that makes sense. So I've taken this, I'm doing the main windshield to start off with, okay, and I am just rolled a tiny little sausage out. I've turned it into kind of a banana shape, and I'm going to just put that at the front, and I'm going to gently press. Now when I say at the front, it just goes on top of that dent that we made right at the very beginning. I'm going to gently pop it on, don't press down too hard too quick. And if I want to put little window lines in there, I'll take my tool, just give it a little detail. Okay, so now it's time to work down the wings, down the fuselage, not the wings, and pop on other windows. So again, tiny little pinches I'm going to be taking, and obviously my big fingers aren't going to pinch off too small a bit. So what I will do, once I've pinched, I will then use my tool to cut them or split them into even smaller. My windows, I will just put a couple down each wing so you can see where they are meant to go. Like I say, you don't necessarily have to have done the light blue. If you wanted to keep it as just regular blue, it's absolutely fine as well. These are your planes for your decoration. Okay, so I've done some little tiny blue ones. Okay, now we generally put 3 down the side and 1 or 2 at the back. I'm going to do very quickly, just show you. We're going to just take a tiny little dot, just put it on, give it a little press down, just try and keep it a circle if you can. I'll do the same next to it, give it a little press down. Finally, oops. Hopefully I've done that flat. I'm upside down right now. You can see, do down the sides. Okay, we'll do them quickly, finish off down the side there. Just going to do 1 at the back. Gently press on. Again, try to be delicate and gentle with the plane. You don't want to change things around too much. Squash things down, if that makes sense. 1 more on the other side, and I'll just quickly do 3 more down this side. Trying to keep them all level and in line, if possible, obviously. And there we go. So I now have my windows on and I'm decorated down the sides. Okay. Now one final touch of decorating on here I like to do before I pop him away, out the way, just to kind of dry. I will give him his little nose on the plane, on the front of the plane. Sorry. Again, it can be any colour you want. I generally take a touch of black. Again, maybe a 0.5 centimetre dirt. Roll it into a ball, and I'm just going to press that down, make it into a tiny little circle. And I'm going to just pop that right on the very front of the plane, right on the nose. Give it a little press down, a little squish, curve it around the nose. Giving it front of the plane look. Okay, so that's the main part of your plane finish now. Okay, and we're now going to move on to the control tower, which, if you can remember, looks a little like this. Okay. So, oops, throwing things around again. Okay, now we do a little change. It's not bright yellow for the main part of the tower. So what we're going to do, we're going to mix some yellow with a touch of black to start off with. So the measurement of yellow that you need, we are going to go with 040 of yellow. Sorry, 10 of yellow. 140, really doing bad there. 140 of yellow clay. Okay, so 104 of yellow clay, and then all we're going to do is take a smidge of black again, 0.5 centimetre circle on your card again. If that's a touch bigger, that's fine. We are basically making this yellow turn a little darker. So again, it depends on how dark you want to turn it. You could leave it yellow, bright yellow, if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to take that 0.5 centimetre of black, and I'm going to give that a quick mix. It just deepens, kind of makes it a dark, yellowy, mustardy colour sort of thing. I think mustard's the wrong description. You can see we've got there. Okay. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to turn this into 5 equal balls. Okay, so you're going to snap this off. I mean, if they're not quite equal, it's not a problem. These are your main parts of your tower. It's going to go dot all the way up to the top. Okay, as you can see, I had one smaller one. I decided to have a smaller one at the top when I built this first one. Gives it a little bit of a different look. So 5 equal-ish balls to start off with. Okay, so I'm going to snap them off. So I've just done that really roughly. I can see that I am pretty close with them all. so it's not too much of a problem. I've got one that's slightly bigger, so I'm going to take a touch off, add that to that one. Okay, so once you're happy with that, like I say, ideally they are even. If they aren't, you can use the way I did before, where I had the smaller one on the top. Completely up to you. Roll these into nice smooth balls. Try and get rid of any of the lumps, bumps and lines if you've got any in there. And all we're going to do with these, I'm going to press down on them gently, turn them into little discs. Try not to press down too hard, try and do the even press that we've always discussed, so we get round discs. Okay, so I'm going to do that with them all, and once you're happy with them, you're going to basically just stack them up on top of each other. Again, not pressing down too hard because you don't want to squish them out, you still want to have a tower, if that makes sense. So try and make sure they're evenly heading up, and if you have to, just give the bottom one a little press down so it will stand upright. Okay. Once we've got that, we're going to add our blue window on. So if you remember, we measured this out once we first made that light blue, and we popped that into our airtight container. So I'm going to grab that very quickly, and we are going to again just give this a little freshen up, give it a little stretch, and roll it into a ball again. So this is the bit that's going to go onto the top of our control tower. I'm going to just flatten that top one off a little bit. Okay, so same process again as we did for the little yellowy discs. We're going to just turn it into a ball. I'm going to just press down and turn it into a disc. Now before we add this onto the tower, we're going to do a little bit of decoration on there. Okay, nothing too drastic, and again, you don't have to do this bit if you don't want. It's just the image of the window. Now you could just use your tool to put some window lines in. What we've done is we've taken some black. Again, another tiny little pinch, a 0.5, maybe even smaller if you can get smaller without it being too delicate. Roll it into a little ball, and then we're going to roll it as kind of even as possible, but as thin and as small as possible. And all this black is going to be done is put across our window, okay, and it kind of gives it the effect of kind of the crosses, the windows across. Alright, so you can roll this into one straight line, you can split this into twos, it's up to you how you want to do it. We generally will roll this out as thin as possible. And I'll cut it in half. Oops. Okay, and all I'm going to do is give it a cross. So crisscross effect, I'm actually a little bit short on one side, so I'll just show you the side that's worked out perfect. So we'll end up with a crisscross like this, okay? All the way across the circle, so it pops out the other side, and we end up with a crisscross. And all we're going to do is finally put a little bit on the top of this, and this is going to be a measurement of 0.4. Now again, this could be a little bit smaller if you need to. 0.4 is probably, maybe, I say maybe, a little bit too much. So if it's a little bit less, it's absolutely fine. It's to give you a good chunk on the top. It's another disc that we're going to do. Will sit on the top, if you can see that there. Okay, so as you see, our tower should look like that. Okay, so I'm going to go 0.4. Okay, so just quickly just do this last little bit here, got a little short on the clay. Okay, so our 0.4 ball of black clay is again just rolled into a ball, and again the same process as we've done all the way along. Just give it a little press down on the top, turn it into a disc, and it will sit on the top, hiding that crisscross of the windows. Okay, and then all we do, add that onto the top of our tower. Try and get it nice centre so it's balanced and it will stand up. That's the test, and it does stand up perfect. Okay, once we've done that, all we've got to do is do the tarmac, and then we can add that on. Okay, so tarmac's nice and simple. We're going to just mix some more grey, taking up my white clay again, scales on, and this time I'm going to measure out 1.80 of white clay. Oh wow, straight in, and we're going to add 0.2 of black this time. So not a lot of black again, we're just lightly turning this into a grey, so roughly 0.2. Okay, mix those together and we've got our runway. Okay, so quick mix. What we do with this runway, it's up to you whether you want to make it perfectly rectangular, nice and flat, nice and even. It's completely up to you. I like to give it kind of more of a rounded effect. So once I'm happy with that, I'll roll it into a bit of a sausage. Again, you don't want to make this too thin, but you want to make it thin enough so it looks like it's rode, not really high up, if that makes sense. So roll it out. I'm going to just squish it down, flat sausage. Now then I'll take it, spread it out a little bit more. Use your hands. I'm going to turn this into our runway. So I'm just gently pressing onto the work surface, pressing even. Like I say, you can make this perfectly flat if you want using your tool, flat on the sides and make it into a perfect rectangle. It's completely up to you. I've made it a lumpy, bumpy, wobbly version. So nice and flat, but it's not super smooth around the edges. Okay, all I'll do then is take my control tower, pop it on at one end, and then the final touch that we'll add to this is a little bit of white paint or markings on the road. So again, touch of white, and it's minimal, smaller the better as always. Tiny little pinch of white, which will then get rolled out into a ball. I will chop a couple in half, and I'll roll them into tiny little sausages, which will then go down the middle of our runway to give the effect of kind of white lines on the, like you'd see on the road, if that makes sense. And that's just about finished on the actual model build itself. So, plane should look something along these lines. Okay, and our runway and control tower will look like this. Obviously a floppy road right now until it dries on the work surface. Okay, so we should have something that looks along these lines. So, if that's how we'll finish. Right, it's free play time now. So, we now measure out 1 gram of every colour if you want. If you've got an idea in your head what you'd like to do as the extra build, obviously you don't need to use 1 gram of every colour. You generally will use 5 grams in total for a free build. Okay, so take what you need, plan what you need, build alongside, build with. If you want to add some more detail to your plane, that's absolutely fine. So 5 grams worth of free play clay. Okay. Finally, just a reminder about the activity sheets, worksheets, things like this, which are all able to be downloaded for parents to add to this build. It's all about the airplane, some word searches, things like that. Okay, and obviously if you are running low on clay, you are more than welcome to give us a shout at claycreators.com to order some more. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye bye.